Hi, everyone. Welcome back to another episode of Astrology Now with Babula Clement, well-known Brisbane astrologer and friend, and myself, Cheryl Gottschall. So, Babula, we've just been talking, we're coming into the new moon in Sagittarius, but we've just been talking about what we've been through in relation to, going through the Scorpio season and starting to move into the lighter energy of Sagittarius, and how we've been feeling about that whole process. We've just been having a chat about, it was a bit like life before the Scorpio season and life after the Scorpio season, and how we've been feeling this big shift within ourselves individually, and how it's sort of changed things for us. So, do you want to share some of that with our viewers?
Yes, I think it was a really it's good to have that conversation before we started, because we're both experiencing something similar but in different ways,
Yeah.
in our own lives. And I mean, every year when the sun goes through Scorpio, and often Mercury and Venus will be there roughly around the same time because they usually travel fairly closely together, it's always a deep time of releasing and transformation, and it is the sign of death and then the rebirth. So there's always a certain level of that process that takes place this time every year. This year it happened to be particularly powerful because of the eclipses and the nodal axis, the south node in Scorpio forming these eclipses in that sign and in the opposite sign of Taurus. So it was particularly strong and potent. And we're both sharing that it wasn't just us who experienced it. We've had feedback from so many people, from different people we know and so on, who've been through something similar.
Yeah.
Very intense, difficult. And that process, in my experience and from what you're saying and others have said, it strips a lot of stuff away, and it gets us down to something very deep and fundamental and core, some kind of core thing. And that's the thing with Scorpio. Like, it often feels to me like in Scorpio, our faces are in it, like a pushes our nose right in the stuff, whatever the stuff is. Because, like even medically, Scorpio is all about that process of the purging of the stuff, purging of the toxins in the body. And that's not always an easy or a pleasant or a pretty process.
Yeah. Yeah.
If you ever go on any kind of cleanse and the body starts to release its toxins, it's not always easy.
Yeah. Well, what I found was, because for me it was, I got COVID, and my voice is still trying to recover, but I'm perfectly well now. But what it did, it was like, it was like before. I related it to like when we started with the pandemic. It was like life before the pandemic and life after the pandemic for us collectively. But for me, it was like my life before COVID and then my life since, as I'm moving through that recovery, and this really deep transformational shift that I've been, I had to do things like cancel clients and workshops that I was running and that because I wasn't well. But that happens anytime, things happen, come up, and you have to do those things. So it wasn't about that. It was about how I felt inside, and the transformational process I went through while I was lying in bed thinking, well, here I am off my feet, the rug's been pulled out from under me. What do I really want to do? What makes me happy? And how am I going to, who am I and what am I doing moving forward after I'm well? And it was a really deep feeling, really deep process that I still have trouble articulating.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, I completely understand that, and I can really relate to that. Yeah, the specifics were different for me, but the process was very, very similar.
Yeah.
And as you were speaking, I was, seeing that it takes us down to something very core inside of us that perhaps has been covered over a bit with layers of other stuff of, what we do in a habitual way because we've always done that, or some pattern in us that we're a bit attached to or stuck in. Tell you, Scorpio is very, very, very effective at stripping that stuff away,
Yeah. Well,
and then revealing what's actually underneath, because that's what Scorpio is about. It's about what's underneath.
yes. Yeah.
In the basement.
Yeah. Well, Scorpio ruled by Pluto, it governs addictions too, doesn't it? So I was sort of thinking, I'm just so addicted to busyness.
Right.
Because in our culture, being busy is being successful. It gives you a sense of achievement, and I am an achiever. I like to be productive.
Yep.
And that can be addictive.
Yeah.
So I'm quieting my life now.
It's been similar for me in many ways too. That deep pattern in me around always getting jobs and tasks and things done, and feeling like, it's these things are so deep. It's almost as though my life depends on it. And I had this realization in my exhaustion. This is insanity.
Yes.
This is absolutely insane. Why do I do this to myself?
Yes.
And so it took me to something very much deeper inside of myself. And so as we're talking about this, what I'm seeing is there's something I'm feeling going on around learning how to let go and trusting the flow of life more, instead of feeling like it's all up to me.
Yes. Yes. Exactly. Yeah.
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 And to be open to something else and another way of being, and another, even though we kind of know this stuff, these kinds of experiences really rip the Band-Aid off of what's still there around our own particular issue.
Yeah.
And it's not even a conscious decision, well, I'm just going to let go. I'm realizing that letting go is just happening. I'm just going, oh, look, that doesn't matter if I don't do that. It just doesn't matter. And it's quite natural and spontaneous. I'm not forcing it, because I can see that if I try and force it, that doesn't work either. I'm still stuck with my real issue of, but I want to get that done.
Yes.
It doesn't matter.
Yes, exactly. Yeah.
And so, I'm sort of left more with, well, what does really matter? Let's just focus on the essentials, and what you're saying, what I really would like to do and what I really love, and how do I take care of myself better, because I have not been very good at that.
Well, the other thing is that I've noticed is I thought, yes, I've been through this with the pandemic. That sort of got us focused into what's really important.
Yes.
And I know this.
We know this.
I've already done, in my mind, I've done this shedding already, which is all part of that scorpionic energy as well, But obviously I've got a lot more to do.
Yeah, and that's what I've always said. There's always more. We might think that we've come a long way, but there is always. And my feeling is that to our last breath, we're in this process of transformation and awakening. It's a big job. It's a big deal.
It's not easy being human, is it?
It's not easy being human.
Oh dear. So anyway, we've been through that, and there's but we're moving out of that now. We're moving into a lot of Sagittarian energy, and
yes, and we bring with us that whatever's been transformed and cleansed and released, we can now bring that into the Sagittarian energy.
Yeah, and that scorpionic energy is sort of, it's like hidden meanings, or hidden things, hidden and secretive. But Sagittarius is completely opposite. It's like, I'm an open book. What you see is what you get, that sort of thing, and that gives you a sense of, when you're around people like that, it gives you a sense of, that's so refreshing, and that makes me feel lighter.
Exactly.
Yeah. So that's what we're having we're going to start having with the new moon and the other things that are moving into Sag.
Yes.
So let's talk about that.
That definitely, and we're having this conversation, you know, just as two planets have left Scorpio. So Venus left Scorpio. See, I was going to say moved into Sagittarius, but I actually want to say left Scorpio, just to sort of make the point
Yes.
that Venus came out of Scorpio and moved into Sagittarius on the 16th. And the following day, Mercury did the same. These are two fast-moving inner planets close to the sun and close to the earth. So they move relatively quickly. So they are now, so Mercury is our thinking. So, you know, when Mercury's in Scorpio, like even our mind and our thinking process, it's down there in the underworld.
Yeah.
And in the dark, you know, in that deeper, darker recesses. And then Venus, you see, she's the principle of love and enjoyment and pleasure and relationship. While she was in Scorpio, you know, we're doing this deep process around, you know, relationships and the love principle and so on. And so all that arena gets very intense. They come out of into Sagittarius, you know, and Venus says, yay, I'm ready to party. Let's have some fun.
Yes. Yeah.
That's right. And the mind suddenly starts to open up and expand again. But it's not like it was before, because these planets and what these energies represent have been through a transformation. So they've transformed in some way. And now in that new way of being, they can go, yeah, I like this. Let's, you know, let's enjoy, let's expand, let's open up.
Yeah. So Venus moving into Sag, and then new moon in Sag, and Sag being ruled by Jupiter, which is a benefic. Venus is a benefic.
Yes.
So it's like, yay, you know, like, let the sun shine in.
Let the sun shine in. And all of a sudden things start to feel more hopeful, more positive.
Yes.
More expansive. They're like, oh, I can see this, I could do this, and there's this opportunity. And I've just heard what somebody, you know, I saw something online and somebody said this, and it lit a spark in me. Yeah. We don't get a lot of that in Scorpio, but in Sag, it's like the curtains part and we can see a horizon, you know, like you said, let the sun in. Hope. Positive.
Yeah, that's, you've touched on a point there, because when we were going through that Scorpio energy, I just felt like my light was going down like this.
Yes.
But now it's doing the opposite. It's starting to reignite.
Exactly. That's right. And we feel like, I can enjoy life again. Yeah. And of course, not everyone's been through exactly the same process, because at the same time, every individual is also having their own very specific transits to their own natal chart.
Yeah.
So that's kind of their own personal story in this process. But in the collective field, and from feedback, you know, we had from friends and so many people, so many have been through a very powerful time of transition, and not an easy one, but really beneficial. You know, I'm grateful now. I can look back and go, okay, thank you, Scorpio, kind of. You know, that needed to happen. That really needed to happen for me.
Yeah. Yeah. It's a bit of a wake-up call, isn't it?
A wake-up call.
Yeah. Yeah. Anyone watching who's had a Scorpio Sagittarian story moving from one to the other, let us know. Put it in the comments, because we'd love to hear what you've been going through too.
That's right. And that's why we talk about this on a personal level too, because, you know, we are literally all in this together.
That's right. Yeah.
Yeah. So yes, and it's you know, it just feels like we feel it in our being, this sense of expansion, because if there's one word that applies to Sagittarius, it's expansion, and the planet Jupiter that rules it. And if you think about Jupiter, it's literally the largest planet in our solar system. It's huge.
Yeah.
And it's all, and as you said, it's the great benefic in traditional astrology, meaning it's a planet that we look to uplift and inspire us, you know. And wherever Jupiter is in, and we're going to talk more about Jupiter because he's really quite active at the moment as we come into this Sag season. But in our birth chart, wherever Sagittarius was when we were born, that's where we hold this energy of inspiration and positivity, and we go, oh, this is a piece of cake. Yes, of course I can do this. It's a positive frame of mind. And somebody else might have difficulty with that same issue. But for us, if we've got Jupiter there, like, well, of course that's what I do, and we're just inspired and by that energy. So the new okay, so on the 22nd, then the sun will leave Scorpio just before the new moon, and also goes into Sagittarius. So by then we're well and truly into the Sagittarius season. And it's interesting, of course, that it's pre-Christmas.
Yes.
And it's not just a commercial thing, although it is that as well. We actually feel like getting together with friends and celebrating and enjoying ourselves because we're in the Sagittarius energy.
Yeah. The great sense of camaraderie.
That's right. That's right. Yeah.
And making friends along the path.
Exactly. And it's something quite, naturally joyful about it. It's a big energy, and Sagittarian people have a big energy.
Yes.
It's a fire sign.
That's right. Yeah.
So I've always loved the way the zodiac operates as a system, because after every water sign where we're in a real feeling place, we're moving through the waters of feelings and emotions and the psyche and intuition, and everything's felt. After every water sign, there's a fire sign. So after Cancer, we come into Leo. After Scorpio, it's Sagittarius. After Pisces, it's Aries. So then we come out into that fire of new passion and enthusiasm and energy. So, I love the way that works. So then on the 24th, of course, is the new moon. And it's at 1 degree and 37 minutes of Sagittarius. So right in the beginning of Sagittarius. And the next number, I think it's about 5. I was having a look at it on my program this morning. New moons, the next 5 months or so, are all around this 1 degree of the signs, of the subsequent signs. And that 0-1 degree is always, they always carry a sense of something new is coming through.
Is it more potent too because it's at the beginning?
Yes.
Yeah.
Those very early degrees, that 0, 1, even 2 degree, are quite strong, as are the final degrees of every sign. 28, 29 are really potent degrees of the signs. When we're in the middle of a sign, that the energy of that sign is kind of fully developed and fully expressing itself.
Yes. Yeah.
So and what's fascinating, because we were talking about Jupiter, the ruler of Sagittarius, is that on the day of the Sagittarius new moon, the planet Jupiter turns direct. It will be what we call stationary direct. So it's coming out of its nearly 5-month period of being in retrograde motion. So, wow, what an injection of positive energy that is.
Yeah, it's going to be interesting to see how that plays out in society, I think, how people respond to it.
I think so. It feels to me like it will be an indication of, we're moving forward. It's a sense of forward momentum, because Sagittarius is one of the signs, Aquarius being another, who always look forward.
Yes.
Right? It is the arrow, isn't it? The centaur shooting an arrow, and he shoots it upwards.
Yeah, I was going to say something about that, actually, because, the centaur's arrow's destination is always heaven and truth.
Yes.
And I think about, we're starting to see on the world stage anyway, a lot more truth coming out about what we've been through in the last 2.5 years with the pandemic and the many untruths that have been, perpetuated. And I was just seeing this morning that there are things happening in the US in regard to, the president and his son, and all these things that have been, tried to remain hidden, but they're not. They're really just coming out,
That's right.
And the whole mismanagement of the pandemic, and how recently, I'm going to rave on here now, but how recently there's, the doctors have formed a new union in Melbourne and had a meeting about, taking back medicine to doctors and taking it away from the government.
That's right.
And there's so much going on now to working towards getting to the truth and reversing what we've just been through.
Exactly.
Yeah.
That's exactly right. And it's that arrow that's always, aiming for a higher truth. And that's very important to me in Sagittarius, that it's always about the higher truth, and Sagittarius is the sign of the quest. It's the quest, the journey for real truth, for higher knowledge, spiritually, philosophically, and so on. And it's interesting, isn't it, that it comes after Scorpio, which is where often the secrets are buried.
Yeah. So digging it up.
That's right. And I agree. I'm seeing it everywhere too, and more people. It's been happening, but all of a sudden I'm seeing more and more people stepping forward and speaking out.
Yeah, definitely.
Yeah, just like have to speak out. They can't not anymore.
Yes, yeah.
And the forces of censorship continue to try and silence it, but it starts to come as a wave. And what's going to happen on the 21st, I think it is, of December, Jupiter, which is on the new moon, going to be turning direct at 28.5 degrees of Pisces, will leave Pisces and be at 0 degrees of Aries. Sign, new beginning. And that will really accelerate this sense of forward momentum, truth. All right, let's go. It's like the green light gets turned on.
Yes.
Things are really going to move.
Yes. Well, I think that the Australian people have had enough of all this wet Piscean energy, and the poor people who've been through the floods. I mean, we had it in my state in Queensland early in the year, then it went down to Victoria, now it's in New South Wales. They're going to dry out after the 21st.
Yeah, those southern states have been hammered this year, and it's not just one flood, it's got another one, and massive flooding.
Yeah, so that Jupiter in Pisces, time to go now.
That's right. And it also kind of, in the middle of the year, it joined up with Neptune. And even now, as Neptune keeps slowly moving forward, Jupiter and Neptune are still quite close together. So that's just a recipe for, unbounded amounts of water.
Yes.
Which, of course, has been exacerbated and increased by certain forces who manipulate with, and play with these things as well. So, yeah, it's been huge. So, excuse me, those notifications are jumping. I thought I'd turn them off. So a very interesting new moon that's going to really highlight also the mutability going on in the skies during this period, because Sagittarius is one of the 4 mutable signs, as is Gemini, its opposite sign. So Mars is doing his retrograde journey, long, slow retrograde in Gemini. Jupiter and Neptune are in Pisces. There's nothing particular happening in Virgo currently, the other mutable sign. But there's a bunch of planets, 7, I think it is, actually currently in the mutable signs. And mutable signs are all about movement and change. Everything keeps moving in the mutable signs.
Responsiveness.
Yes, exactly. Responding to the moment. They happen to be very flexible, adjust, adapt quickly.
Yes, yeah.
Move quickly. It's very kind of fluid, and there's a restlessness. And Sagittarius restlessness, as we know, manifests as you just got to go places.
Yeah, travel. Let's go.
Yeah, even if it's
a ticket.
Exactly, a particularly plane travel. But it's also just, spontaneously wanting to jump in the car and take off somewhere.
Yes, yeah.
Or take that trip around Australia, that you've been thinking about for 10 years. just go somewhere. And because when we travel, what happens, you know, everything, we leave all our daily concerns and struggles behind. Not that travel's always easy, but, you know, our minds expand and open up, don't they?
They do, yeah.
New experiences. We
It's
feel free.
Yeah, it creates an infusion in our psyche.
Yes, it does.
Yeah, yeah.
We have new experiences. And I use the word free then. Freedom is a very high value in Sagittarius. It's very high, like it's up there. You know, you go through the signs and consider, well, you know, what's the highest value? You know, what does someone who's got the sun in that sign, you know, value the most? In Sagittarius, freedom is one of them. It's the freedom to move.
Yes. Yeah.
Freedom to travel, the freedom to speak your truth.
Yes.
Freedom to be who you are, to follow any religious, philosophical thread you feel like following.
Feeling unhampered in every way.
Exactly.
Mm.
Exactly. And it's no accident that the animal that we most associate with Sagittarius, of course, is the centaur, but that includes horses. Sagittarius have an affinity with horses. And I know a number of people who work therapeutically with horses and people, and they're Sagittarians.
Yes. Yeah.
You know? And because a horse represents that energy of freedom, doesn't it? You know, just galloping free.
Yeah, I was always very thankful that my father, you know, he was into horses and he bred them, he raced them, he sold them, he shoed them, he made saddles and all those sorts of things, all the leather work. And when I realized now as an adult that when I would go and visit him, because I didn't grow up with him, on school holidays and things like that, that I would always have a sense of, when I came back to live with my mother, I have a sense of a loss of freedom.
Right.
Because in that lifestyle with the horses as well, we'd ride horses to the shop, to the local swimming pool, that sort of stuff. In those days, there weren't roads there. So, I'd have this great sense of expansion and freedom, and Dad didn't sort of, you know, he'd just say, oh, just don't go past the fence line, which was acres, but just wander. And I realise now how much that would have fed my soul as a Sagittarius myself, and why I felt such a sense of loss, not just about not being with my father, but because he was always working anyway, but
yes,
you know, losing that sense of freedom that I had on the property, and then coming back to a suburban lifestyle, you know.
That's right.
Yeah.
That's right. And that Sagittarian urge to travel and explore and go out there. And Sagittarius do gravitate more to the country life than the city life. And it's just that sense of, you know, the big open sky. And Australia, even though we're a Capricorn sun, we have a lot of planets in Sagittarius.
We do.
You know, and I've noticed that if I'm overseas and I come back here, it's the sky, this big, vast sky above us. It's different. It's somehow different.
It is. And it's lighter.
Yes, it is. There's a lot of light.
Yes. I found that when I'd been through Europe for weeks and then I came back here. Wow, it's like that sense of openness and brightness.
That's right. And that is part of the Australian character as well. So yes, we're really moving into that Sagittarian energy now. So it is cause for some celebration, and it is a really great time to get together with friends, have a bit of fun, enjoy, you know, depending on your circumstances and what they allow. Take a trip, go somewhere, even if you can just take a couple of days out and just get away. You know, it's a fantastic time to do that.
Yeah.
Because then we come back and we feel like, oh, that feels better, you know, a bit refreshed.
Yeah, exactly. Pushing that refresh button is great to go into the new year.
Yes, it is. That's right. So, yes, this is the sign of the quest, you know, the quest, the search. Sagittarians are seekers. They're seekers through experience, you know, of knowledge and higher learning and understanding, and they want to see and understand more. Yeah. Okay, so yeah, a lot of energies in the mutable signs. If you're feeling a bit, restless, go with it. Let yourself have that in some way. Okay. On the 1st of December, Venus in Sagittarius will make an opposition with Mars in Gemini. Remember, Mars is still retrograde.
Yep.
So that will really highlight very much this feeling of, I've got to go somewhere. I need change. I need variety. I'm bored. I'm restless. So that early period of December is, if anyone has the opportunity, and I do, I've been given an opportunity to go away for a few days, and I'm very happy about that.
That's good.
Exactly what's needed.
Yeah.
Yeah. And then on the 4th, Neptune in Pisces, who's been retrograde for about 5.5 months, will turn direct. And that will then bring us into a period where I think we've only got one planet left in retrograde motion. I didn't double check that. I think it's Chiron. So sometimes we get a period of time where most of the planets are in forward motion.
Yeah.
And there's always a sense of, things are moving now. Things are moving.
That just makes me feel so much better.
I know, it's great. It's great. And, when a planet's changing direction, particularly these outer planets, which move so slowly, their presence is really felt quite strongly for quite a few days. So with Neptune, that first week of December is stationary, changing direction at 22 degrees of Pisces. So people might find themselves feeling a bit weary, a bit sensitive. That's okay. It's like, if we can just take a bit of time out, go to the beach if that's available, to sit and stare at the sea, at the horizon, taking a bit of time out to relax if that's possible. And that's, as we were talking before about, since coming out of Scorpio, that's become really clear to me. I need to, it's so strong, it almost feels like for my very survival, I need to prioritize a lot more resting, and in so many small ways every day, looking after.
Yeah.
So I think it's, we're not very good at it in the Western world. We're so programmed to not do that.
Well, our focus in the West is about doing, not being,
That's right.
So, but when I think about Eastern countries where the people every day go to temple and they take time out to give themselves spiritual nourishment, and to be in the well, some temples are quite busy, but they're still in a different, they take them out of the ordinary life and they move into the place where spirit can actually communicate to them.
That's right.
Yeah. And them in turn. And that's really important for us to do that.
So important.
Yeah.
It's just absolutely essential. We haven't prioritized it at all. I mean, everyone's at a different relationship with that. So I'm just speaking generally, and I'm speaking for myself. Yeah. Even though we know these things, it's not always easy to do, because we all have our own deep patterns and karmic energies that, we're still working through and resolving and unraveling and unwinding. And that's certainly one of mine.
Yes.
Virgo South Node, the program to just keep working.
Yes. Yeah. Well, with me, it's just about spending more time, in that place of spirit, I think.
That's right.
In front of my altar and just being and knowing that's okay.
That's right. And that's right. Because on the outside, it looks like you're not doing anything. Yeah. We always have to be seen to be busy and occupied and productive and useful.
Yeah.
Why?
Who gives a rat?
And we do it ourselves. Again, I'm speaking for myself, but I'm sure that there are many people would relate to this, because it is part of the world we live in.
Yep.
That's right.
Yeah.
So hallelujah.
Awakening at last.
That's right. That's right. And that awakening, process, happens in so many different ways. Some of them seem quite small and subtle, but they're often not small. They might look small, but they can move mountains inside us. They can be really powerful paradigm shifts.
Mm, mm.
Mm.
Yeah. And I think, when we did our last recording, I think then, because, we were both pretty, you were exhausted and I was sick. I don't know how we got through it, but we did. And I think then I said, all I feel like doing when I get back on my feet properly is just doing the simple things like cooking and gardening, Like, and that's what my female energy is drawn to. And if I was a male, I would feel like doing male things, but not things that are high achievements, but just reconnecting to those basic things that give us a foundation.
That's right.
I think. And that's really important.
And it's so nourishing. And, you use the word female, but there is, I think, something about that area that is of the feminine.
Yes.
To just be still, to be quiet, to do those things that nourish us, that may not look externally productive or useful or successful, in the world, that it just even selfish in a way, that are just for you, just for me, just to connect and commune with that, with soul, with spirit, with whatever that is. Particularly in the world we live in now and what we're all going through. I think this is critical. I think this is really has to become a priority.
Yeah. There's certainly a room for a complete reversal of the way that we live.
Exactly. And on the feminine, and I haven't got it here, but I was looking at this earlier. Quite a lot of the goddess asteroids are actually quite active and present currently. And, they're really showing up. And when I see that, it always speaks to me of, the energy and the presence of the feminine is really coming through quite strongly. And we will each relate to that in a different way, but I think it does relate to what we've been speaking about today, that need to take our time to quieten down, to nourish ourselves, in that way.
Interesting.
And to let go of stuff that's really not important, even if we thought it was. It's, a real shift of priorities. Yeah, I'm very happy about it. I'm very grateful for it. And I'm sure there'll be more that will unfold, So on.
So does that bring us to the next move?
Yes, then, so on the 7th, Mercury is currently moving pretty quickly. So he's going to whiz through Sagittarius from the 17th of November through to the 7th of December. So that's a 3-week run and he'll go into Capricorn then.
Okay.
So on the 7th, our mind will start to turn more towards, well, I'll use the word serious, because Capricorn is by nature more serious.
Yeah, it's very sober. Yeah.
Very sober, very much about reality and practicalities.
Yep.
Getting back to business.
Yes.
Right. So after Sag, after we go through the Sagittarius period, we come back to becoming a bit more sober and kind of go, okay, we've had time to play and explore and have some adventures, which are necessary. Venture is a great Sagittarius word. Let's have some adventures, people. Let's have some adventures. Then we kind of get back down to perhaps, and at the end of the year, when we come into the Capricorn energy, we might start to be thinking about perhaps setting in place a few plans for the year ahead. We're thinking about, okay, how do I want to structure things in my life and get a bit organized?
Yes.
That's how the Capricorn energy works more. And then on the 8th of December, the full moon, an interesting one. We'll have plenty to talk about with that, because a lot will happen between the new moon and the full moon. The full moon will be at 16 degrees of Gemini, exactly conjunct retrograde Mars at 16 degrees of Gemini. That's got a lot of energy, that one.
So stay tuned for that.
Stay tuned. Very mutable, very quite dynamic. Yeah.
Yeah. So what you've just said is it's like a natural cycle, isn't it? With the Scorpio, the Sagittarius, the Capricorn. So it's like Scorpio is heavy and in the
Deep.
underworld and deep and intense.
Yeah.
And after you go through something like that, you want to go, oh, let's just let's
That's
just get out of that. And sort of like the response is this unfurling of creativity.
That's right.
That's a natural response in any sort of difficult time in our life. Afterward, it always follows this outpouring of creativity and lightness of being and openness, etc. And we see that through history, don't we?
Exactly.
After the war, Renaissance period, all those sorts of things.
Exactly.
Yeah. But
And
then
we feel inspired, more positive again and hopeful. We can start to see, the possibilities are opening up,
yes.
It's
And then
a fire sign. Yeah.
we just explode with all of that.
That's right.
But then we've got to pull it back in and
That's right.
be practical about it.
That's right.
So we've heaviness, lightness. Okay, now let's just sort of
Now let's get organized.
let's get the even keel back. Yeah.
That's right. So any opportunities, all of you listening to this, you have during this Sagittarius period to bring in a bit of freedom, a bit of space, a bit of fun, a bit of adventure into your life in any ways. And also, of course, considering what house in your birth chart the sign of Sagittarius is in. Mine's in my 4th house, so it's kind of very much a home-based thing for me. To really make the most of this opportunity, because it will be, I remember when I used to teach beginners astrology, for years and years, I would take everyone through a journey through the zodiac, because it really is a journey. It's a developmental process, which is what you were just addressing, from Sagittarius to Capricorn and so on.
Yeah.
So how do we make the most of each of these periods through every year? There's these cycles every year. How do we make the most of that energy when the sun is passing through each of these signs?
Yeah. I think
yeah.
Excuse me for looking away, but I'm just thinking, looking up my own. I think mine's in the 11th house of Sagittarius.
Fantastic.
Yeah. So
that's friends and people.
yes, it is. Yeah.
Social, wanting to connect and get out and about. That's right.
Yeah. Yeah. Which I do anyway through Christmas holiday season.
Yeah.
We always have a get together with friends and blah, blah, blah. So, which is great.
Yeah, it is fantastic. It's great to have some fun, just to have some fun.
Yes. Yeah.
Yeah.
Cool. So is that all we've got with the?
That's well, and then on the 10th, Venus goes into Capricorn as well. So we're just sort of speaking of that shift. But right now, coming into Sag.
Yay! Oh, yay! Holiday mode, silly season.
Silly season.
Oh, dear. So if you've enjoyed watching this, do remember to give it a thumbs up. If you want to know keep in touch with us, remember to subscribe and tap the bell to get the notice when our posts are published. And do remember, if you've had some sort of scorpionic Sagittarian moment, a transition of sorts through that process, do pop a message to us in the comments. We'd love to hear what you've been through, because there's lots of people out there have been through things too.
Absolutely, that's right.
Yeah. Oh, well, as always, Babula, thank you so much for sharing all your knowledge.
So welcome, Cheryl.
And people can contact you through your website, which is?
It's just my name, babulaclement.com.au, and there's no S on Clement. People have an impulse to put an S on the Clement.
Okay, all right.
It just seems to be a natural thing people do. So.
And you're also running a workshop. You're doing a face-to-face, in-person, and online.
I'm on the 27th of November. I do this every year towards the end of the year. And I wait till the sun's in Sagittarius, because Sag has got a lot to do with teaching and the expansion of knowledge. All about the energies coming up in the next year. So it's all about 2023. And then on the following Tuesday, I think it's the 29th, there'll be a 3-hour Zoom webinar covering all the same material. So you can find me on Facebook, just Babula Clement on Facebook, or on my website, and just you can connect with me through there if you're interested in either one of those.
Yes, well, I'll be there because I want to know what's happening next year.
Yeah, it's very interesting. Quite a change,
Yeah.
significant shift of energy next year.
Yeah. Well, interesting. Well, thank you once again. And we will look forward to seeing you all in another 2 weeks. So bye for now.
Bye, everyone.